Hi, fantasy readers. This is Corinne Norton, your fellow book binger, and you are listening to the Finding Fantasy Reads podcast, where you can test out a new fantasy story every single week to find your next favorite author. Today's story shows the darker side of Neverland with a unique Peter Pan origin story. It's written by Maseeha Seedat, who was born and raised in South Africa and is now a full-time student and part-time writer. Her writing ranges from the fun and whimsical to the dark and serious, most of the time settling somewhere in the middle. When she's not writing, Maseeha can be found surrounded by her family and friends or clawing her way toward a degree in physiotherapy. Today's narrator is Paeter Frandsen, host of Christian Geek Central. Stick around to the end or check out today's show notes to see where you can find more from both the author and the narrator, as well as how to enter our Fantasy Retellings audiobook giveaway. For now, please enjoy Plenus Luna by Maseeha Seedat.
Let me make one thing clear. There is no Neverland. Well, not the Neverland you grew up fantasizing over. There never was, and there never will be. The idea of a magical, whimsical Neverland was cooked up by you dim-witted humans to ease your darling children's nightmares, to ensure they slept peacefully through the night so you could too. Well, I hate to break it to you, but my island is far from your daydreams. That's why it's called Neverland. Once you get there, you never return. Pan! Pan, wake up! My eyes fluttered open. I strained to see the figure at the edge of my mattress through the darkness. Darkness. I turned to face the window. It was pitch black outside. Why was someone waking me up in the middle of the night? Footsteps shuffled across the dirt floor. I closed my fingers over the dagger under my pillow. Pan? The voice repeated. Did you hear me? Wake up! I knew that voice. Jamie. He would pay for disturbing my sleep. The footsteps halted near my head. Pan? My arm shot up, throwing my blanket in his face. He lurched backward, blinded as I leaped off the bed. I shoved my elbow into his stomach. My shadow would have copied me if it wasn't so dark. Jamie flopped onto the bed, and I pinned him there, holding the dagger to his throat. His hands struggled under the blanket, soon ripping it off his face. I grabbed a torch from my pedestal and flicked it on. I grinned. Gotcha. Jamie grinned back, curly black locks falling over his face. I can see that. Why, though, I can't understand. You woke me up. I stuffed my dagger into my belt, mimicking his squeaky voice. Why, though, I can't understand. It's the last full moon of summer. Don't tell me you forgot our tradition. Oh, right. Jamie and I had celebrated Plenus Luna together since we met, voyaging to Skull Rock to remember the year we lived, the creatures we survived, to mark the last good day of the year. After that, the winter monsters came out, far more fearsome than the beasts of the warmer months. In summer, we could still go stargazing, still wander along the forest paths without fearing for our lives. In fall, there was still the rare chance of visiting the healer's camp and making it home intact. But in winter, setting one foot outside your door meant you'd be walking with a peg leg for the rest of your life. Come on! Jamie yelled. He ran out the door, knowing I would follow him sooner or later. I quickly yanked my hat onto my head and straightened the red feather on its side as I bolted after him. My feet drummed like thunder against the earth, swirling a dust cloud around me, natural camouflage against the monsters. I caught up to Jamie at the hangman's tree, where he sat on one of its gnarled roots. The naked branches creaked in the breeze, their eerie voices echoing in the silence. Goosebumps pricked along my arms. Two crows cried overhead as the clouds parted to reveal the moon, its beams kind enough to grant my shadow a weak lifeline. It danced at my toes, pulling me toward the coast. I knew why. Skull Rock. Time for our tradition to commence. What are you waiting for? Jamie scowled. The moonlight won't last all night. I tore my eyes away from my lively shadow. I'm waiting for you to catch up. With that, I took off, my shadow racing alongside me. Jamie hollered behind me, but soon caught up. We dashed through the night, over hills and into valleys, our manic footsteps kicking the sweet fragrance of cosmos and lilies into the empty night sky. It wouldn't be empty for long. Jamie and I both knew that, and we were ready. After climbing the third hill, we met our first monster. A fae with wings of smoke descended from the wispy clouds, her pale skin covered in scars, typical for a life on Neverland. We called her Tink for the metallic clanking of her silver heart, a common trait among the fae, granting them the ability to move and think faster than any other creature on the island. So what? She was still flesh and bone. Jamie and I could outwit a fae any time of the year. Now the fae believed in three things: faith, trust, and pixie dust. Tink only believed in one. She twirled her gloved fingers, summoning a cloud of glittering pixie dust into her palm. "Cover your eyes!" Jamie yelled as Tink blew the specks into the air. The wind shifted, almost on cue, and I shielded my eyes as the dust drifted toward us. The searing pain of Tink's mischief was something I definitely didn't want to experience again. "Down the hill!" Jamie ordered. He skidded down the dew-soaked grass into the valley below. I followed him, and Tink followed me, her wings hissing with every beat. She never could resist a good chase. It was too bad she had fallen for our trap. Down in the valley, the towering hills blocked the breeze, leaving Tink only her delicate fairy breath to carry her weapon. Without the wind, she was almost powerless, and she knew that. Tink twirled her fingers again, summoning more dust to overcome our trick. I glanced at Jamie. He nodded. We charged at Tink and tackled her by the legs. A grunt escaped her as she stumbled, flicking her open palm into the air. Jamie and I each grabbed an arm and a leg, holding her firmly to the ground. She squirmed as the dust settled on her bare skin. Tink's scream echoed mercilessly, reverberating off the hills as she writhed in agony. Swamp green boils bubbled and burst over her skin, spewing pus like geysers. The scars would never fade. We left her there as the acid burned the grass beneath her. She wouldn't come after us for a few weeks at least. Jamie and I had timed it before. Tink wouldn't dare to attack us until her wounds healed. We scaled the hill again and didn't stop running until we reached the coast of Neverland. That was where we encountered our second lot of beasts, the mermaids. These were not the mermaids of your fairy tales. Oh no, these mermaids were not from your Neverland. They didn't spend their days in crystal-clear lagoons, chattering on the rocks or swimming under roaring waterfalls. They were from my Neverland, and they suited that description just fine, residing in the ocean depths far from the rest of us. Well, until they were hungry. "Oh, Pan," sang one of the monsters, her holy white eyes watching me closely. "Don't you want to come for a swim?" "No thanks," I said, scurrying across the sandy beach to where our canoe was hidden under a pile of driftwood and palm fronds. "I'd rather drown." "That can be arranged," said another, dragging her fishtail through the shallows, ocean waves lapping against her pale, slimy body. Jamie started to offload the driftwood, throwing each log over his shoulder to scare the mermaids. It didn't work. I swung a palm frond wildly, forcing the beasts away from our only escape to Skull Rock. Jamie lifted a log over his head, ready to hurl it, but it was too heavy. He stumbled into the crashing waves on the shore. A mermaid grabbed his ankle. He growled as her claws sank into his skin, blood staining the beach red, her venom racing through his veins. "You're both targeting the wrong boy," she said, and I knew her voice. It had haunted my sleep long enough for me to remember it. She was the most cunning of the pod, Hanan. Her nose flared, sniffing out our emotions as her pointed ears twitched at the drum of our heartbeats. "Ah, yes, this boy. Jamie. Ah, yes, Jamie. He has been through so much, and at such a young age." "Don't listen to her," I said, yanking the wood off our canoe. I threw a piece at Hanan's head. She dodged it easily. "First his brothers, the Lost Boys, all taken in the middle of the night," she whispered as Jamie's veins turned black. It wouldn't be long before he gave in. Then his father, murdered by a pirate at sea. Then his mother killed by the grief that consumed her. Jamie's fist trembled furiously as he bit his lip to hold in tears. Hanan cackled with glee. Oh, yes, I know, my child. I know your suffering, your anger, your hatred and despair. I know how you wandered this merciless island until you met a boy just as lost as you. The beast shot me a dark glare before turning back to her prey. He didn't help you find your way, but I can. Let me help you. Let me take it all away. Jamie, don't do it! Tears stung my eyes, threatening to block my vision. I couldn't break, not yet, not until Jamie was safe. I shoved the canoe into the fizzing water and pulled out my dagger. Jamie blinked back tears, taking a step further into the ocean. Please, he whimpered, take it all away. Another step, another cackle from Hanan. Oh, no, you don't. I turned to my shadow. Get rid of the beast. My shadow rolled up his sleeves, his opaque face parting in a sly grin. He leaped across the sand, consuming Hanan's tail in a fistful of darkness. She screeched and squirmed as her sisters raced to her aid, but she never let go of Jamie. A shadow dagger sprung from my clone's waist. He hurled himself at the slimy creatures, holding them at bay. I grabbed Jamie's arm and ripped Hanan's claw from his leg. What are you doing? Jamie hissed. Let go of me. I'm going with the mermaids. Not on my watch. I bandaged the wound with my green hat to slow the bleeding. Now hold still. I picked up his squirming body, my shadow hoisting Jamie's legs out of the beast's reach. No! Jamie screamed. The mermaids echoed his cry as they clawed their way to the canoe. It was nice seeing you, Hanan, I wheezed, but we've got places to be. See you next summer. I hurled Jamie into the boat. His head bashed against the seat, and he flopped unconscious. Oh well, it's better than him screaming his lungs out. I scrambled for the oars, and we took off, my arms whirling faster than they had in my life. The mermaids were soon moonlit specks on the horizon. I allowed myself a short sigh of relief. They wouldn't follow us. No, they wouldn't dare. Not with Tick-Tock slumbering far below in eternal darkness. No one would follow us out here, not now. We were safe, at least for the moment. Eventually, I stopped rowing, turning to face Skull Rock. The mountain's silhouette lingered in the distance, the wind howling through its open jaw, beckoning us to join it on the last full moon of summer. We would be there within the hour, that was, if Jamie lived to see it. He had to. Jamie? I whispered, leaning over his still body as I swallowed the lump in my throat. Jamie, can you hear me? One bloodshot eye flickered open, then the other. I reached for the lantern beside him with trembling fingers, the one we kept in the boat to ward off Tick-Tock, and set the wick burning with a match from my pocket. The flame lit up the dark veins streaking across his pale face. He grinned, revealing a gap between his two front teeth. Can you hear me? I said. A tear dripped to my chin. He had to be all right. Please. Jamie nodded, his eyes rolling in his head. Had Hanan's venom worked its magic already? It was time to test his memory. Tell me the story. I pulled him into a sitting position, forcing my heart to stop pounding. Tell me the story of my shadow. His head dropped forward. I thrust it up firmly. Tell me. Jamie cocked his head to the side, then murmured the tale I knew all too well. When you were little, not even strong enough to stand on your own 2 feet, you were struck by the Neverbird. The Neverbird was a small creature, struggling as it flew, like a thin piece of parchment against the wind. One day, it bit you right there. Jamie pointed to the hollow of my right foot, where a deep red scar still remained. And its venom crept through your veins, killing you from the inside out. So your parents called the healer Tiger Lily, hoping against all odds that she could save you." "And what did Tiger Lily do?" I asked. A shiver crept through me as the wind took a sharp turn. Our boat rocked a little, scattering ripples across the ocean. "Tiger Lily," Jamie's voice wandered. "Focus!" "Tiger Lily," his eyes shot wide open. "The healer cast a fearful charm that dragged the illness out of you by your little toe. But you were a horrible child." Jamie laughed to himself, the color returning to his cheeks. His veins began to fade back to normal. "You struggled and squirmed, weakening her spells. At the end of the day, she saved your life, but the venom's darkness is still tethered to you, forming a mischievous shadow with its own mind. You will never escape it." My chest heaved as I exhaled. Jamie was still in his right senses. He was probably just in shock from Hanan's tricks. Something plopped in the ocean a few feet from us. I swung the lantern around, illuminating the hushed ripples of the ever-moving ocean. Could it be TikTok? The beast was terrified of light, the hope it carried. He wouldn't dare to come near us. Another plop, this time behind me. My fingers tightened over my dagger. "Jamie, how strong are you?" "Stronger than you," he smirked, still half-dazed. "Good." My breathing quickened, my heartbeat a war drum in my ears. "You better get rowing." Jamie snapped to life, arms pumping as he propelled us toward Skull Rock, his gaze steady to Neverland's shore. I balanced at the bow of the boat, studying the water for any sign of movement below us. We were almost at Skull Rock. We were almost safe. TikTok would never come after us. We had a light. He wouldn't come. He wouldn't. A fountain of water spurted in my face, the frigid sea spray drenching me to the core. Our lantern fizzled out and died. Only the moon's pale face was left to light the way through Skull Rock's towering shadow. "Pan?" Jamie called out, his back to me. "You alive?" "Yeah, you? What do you think?" I wiped my face dry, twirling my dagger over in my fingers. That's when I heard it. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. My blood turned to ice. "Keep rowing," I ordered, almost losing my balance as Jamie took up the oars again. The first thing I saw was the beast's scales peeking out of the water like 100 gleaming blades in the moonlight. Then came his tail swinging back and forth to the ticking rhythm in his throat. "Pan, you're quiet," Jamie said. "What do you see?" "Just keep rowing," I screamed as the beast surfaced, snapping its enormous jaw in my face. My dagger fell from my fingers, landing somewhere at the bottom of the boat. Jamie whirled around as I teetered and crashed into him. We tumbled off the seat as TikTok clamped his teeth over our little rowboat. The wood creaked and snapped, leaving us without a bow. "You scream like a girl," Jamie scoffed, shoving me off his chest. "Try telling that to the croc. Maybe he doesn't eat little girls." Jamie reached for the oars, sweat glistening off his forehead. He cursed as his hands clamped over thin air and TikTok yanked the oars into the water. The splintering fibers echoed in the silent night as the crocodile devoured his toothpicks. We were next on the menu. "You got a plan?" I asked, watching the beast circle us, my brain consumed with the endless ticking. "I'm working on it." Then TikTok disappeared, his enormous figure vanishing into the depths. A flurry of bubbles raced to the surface where the beast had been seconds before. I craned my neck over the edge, searching the darkness. Nothing. Did he just give up? "See?" I forced a laugh. "That was a breeze." "I don't like breezes," Jamie snarled, pushing his curls out of his face. "They mess up my hair." My grin faded as something thumped under our boat. No. Thump. It couldn't be. Thump. Only one beast had that kind of strength. My voice died as TikTok raced to the surface, his snout colliding with the bottom of our boat. The force launched us skyward, and we flew from our seats only to plummet into the freezing ocean. I burst through the tumbling waves, the salt water burning my lungs. My heart hammered in my ears as I scanned the water for Jamie. I couldn't see a thing in Skull Rock's shadow. Jamie! I heaved the canoe right side up, my shadow lending a helping hand. Jamie! I clambered into the boat, shivering uncontrollably. Pan! Jamie's head burst through the waves, his long curly hair over his eyes. I bolted toward him, almost flipping the boat again as I sunk my hands into the ice-cold water, paddling as fast as I could. My life depended on it. Without Jamie, it wouldn't be one worth living. Don't just stand there, help me, I ordered my shadow. But the clouds drifted over the moon. My shadow died, leaving me alone. Well, not alone. Tick-Tock was hurtling toward the boat at full speed. Pan! Jamie yelled. Give me your hand! I reached for Jamie as he swam closer. He stretched out to me, fingers splayed. Almost. Almost. Tick-Tock lurched out of the water right between Jamie and me. I pulled my hand to my chest, the boat rocking maniacally. Jamie didn't have the same fortune. Crocodile clamped his jaw over Jamie's wrist, consuming it all, fingers, nail, and bone, leaving him with a stump of spurting blood. His scream echoed in the silence. Tears coursed down to my chin, and I didn't bother wiping them away. The clouds parted, bringing my shadow back to life. Oh, now you come! I couldn't help rolling my eyes. Help me save him! My shadow nodded eagerly. It dove into the ocean and held the boat by the stern. Its legs kicked furiously, propelling us through the water, but it steered in the wrong direction. No, my shadow had its focus set on Neverland's coast, on home and the safety of my bed. It didn't care. Why didn't it care about Jamie? I flickered my gaze over the boat in search of my knife, hoping beyond hope to use it and scare my shadow. It was nowhere in sight. It must have fallen into the water when Tick-Tock attacked. Swim, Jamie! I hollered as the wind returned. Swim and I'll pull you out! Jamie's head sunk beneath the waves, the water blood red in the moonlight. No. My heart drummed faster. Turn us around, I commanded. My shadow refused. Turn us around! I grabbed the wispy black trail at my feet, desperate to pull my stupid, self-preserving shadow out of the water so it would stop swimming. If only I could find my blasted dagger. Jamie! Tears streamed down my face. Jamie was right. I did scream like a little girl. It wasn't long before I was back on Neverland. I ducked below the waves, blinking through the murkiness as Pan's boat faded away. I didn't even scream after him. What was the use? He had abandoned me. He wouldn't save me. It was up to me to save myself now. My heart pounded like a war drum as I raced to Skull Rock. It was only a couple 100 feet away, a distance I could swim with ease if I wasn't cold and bleeding and missing a hand. Oh, and being chased by a crocodile. Why did I have to be so delicious? I surfaced to scan the water. Dark scales loomed in the distance, growing closer with every shaky breath I took. I forced myself to think back to the memories of my home before Pan. What were my father's rules on surviving this brute while sailing Neverland's murky waters? The scales were close now, each at least the size of my head. Time was up. I took one last breath before sinking into the waves, Pan's dagger gripped in my good hand. It was a good thing I had picked it up before that two-faced traitor did. A dark mass filled my vision, blood-stained teeth glinting in the moonlight as I suddenly remembered my father's warning. His senses are weak. Escape from the jaws is bleak. After the death roll is the best time to retreat. The beast's enormous yellow eyes came into view, and I was ready. He clamped his jaws over the stump of my arm, but he didn't bite. No, Tick-Tock was going to whirl me around in a death roll until I was streamlined, easy enough to swallow in one gulp. How stupid. My arm had barely been a snack. I wouldn't let him have another bite. And that mission wouldn't be painless. The agony coursed through my body, sending bubbles to the surface as I screamed. Focus! I couldn't give in, not now. As spasms exploded up my arm, I stabbed Pan's blade into the monster's eye over and over. He gurgled as a dark liquid seeped down his scaly face, but he didn't let go. The beast spun around in a death roll, a movement used to position his prey in line with his throat, or so my father said. I didn't struggle, instead spun in the same direction as Tick-Tock, waiting for him to exhaust himself. I hoped my breath would last the fight. Black spots clouded my vision as the creature finally slowed down. I shook my head vigorously, reaching to skewer his eyes, his ears, his nostrils, anything to disorient him further. His jaw loosened. I yanked myself free, rushing to the surface. My breath sputtered out of my aching chest, and I couldn't help the smile on my lips. I had survived. I was probably the first since my father had faced Tick-Tock all those years ago. Sure, I was bleeding, tired, and scraped all over from Tick-Tock's teeth, but I was alive. But now was not the time to celebrate. I gripped the dagger firmly and began the journey to Skull Rock, the moonlight guiding me as I left Tick-Tock far behind. I dragged my aching body onto the pebble shore of Skull Rock, the stones ripping through my skin. I didn't care. If I didn't get my stump fixed soon, I would bleed to death. Pan, you traitor! I screamed until my throat burned. Hot tears poured down my face as the salt water stung my wounds. I thought you had my back! I trusted you! How dare you leave me to die! My gaze dropped to where Hanan had poisoned me, staring at Pan's hat wrapped over the wound. I untied it and lobbed it into the waves. The bleeding down there had stopped anyway. I pulled my shirt over my head and ripped it in two, clamping the stump with one half and using my teeth to tourniquet my forearm with the other. The fabric was soon red with blood. You'll pay for this, Pan! I turned my glare back to the island. I swear on the evils of Neverland, I will make you pay, even if it takes me a lifetime. My voice cut off, raw from the seawater and my threats. A sharp pang raced down to my fingers, well, where they used to be. I had to fix my arm, now. I crawled through one of Skull Rock's nostrils into a cavern illuminated by the gentle hue of glowworms, our hideout. It was mine now. Pan didn't deserve it. Near the nostril was a little fire pit in a ring of ash-stained stones, a crate next to it filled with driftwood from last year. I placed a few twigs in the pit as kindling and dug around for the flint and steel, finding them buried near the crate. I angled the flint over the kindling so I could strike it with my only hand. The scrape of metal against rock echoed in the nostril. Come on, I whispered, gritting my teeth. I struck it again, harder. A spark. Please work. Again, more sparks. The searing agony in my arm intensified. One last time, red-hot sparks. Then the twigs caught fire. I blew on them gently, coaxing the flames to burst into life. They sputtered, flickering meekly. More wood, each piece larger than the last. And then there was fire. I held Pan's blade over the flames, wincing as I tore the fabric shred off my stump. It clung to my bloody limb, each tug ripping into me like a neverbird bite. The blade was soon blazing red. I tore a strip from my shorts, clamping my jaw over the ball of fabric, and placed the burning metal on my stump. Oh, my stars! The fabric muffled my cries, tears streaking down my face and sizzling in the flames as I lifted the knife, then put it back, repeating the action to seal the blood vessels but keep the rest of my arm unharmed. I roared in pain, dislodging the cloth ball. I hadn't expected it to be this bad, and it was Pan's fault. He was to blame for this. He would pay for this. The thought of his arrogant grin filled my mind, somehow numbing the torture I had to endure. I glanced down at the dark, bloody mess I made, but my arm wasn't dripping. It was sealed. I quickly grabbed a spare shirt from another crate, swinging it over my head and arm to form a sling. Unless I was infected, I had a pretty good chance for survival. I let my gaze wander across the cavern, the memories etched into every crevice, every stone on the ground. The crackling fire filled my ears as I thought over the first step of my revenge. I would continue our tradition without him. That would teach him a lesson. My body trembled from the chilled wind as I stumbled to the back of the nostril. The fingers of my good hand ran over the ivory stone of Skull Rock. Where is it? Where is it? My hand found a set of lines carved into the rock. I picked up a pebble, etching in a few new lines. One for the year I had survived on Neverland. 19 for the number of monsters I had encountered, bringing my kill count up to 200. A milestone we were meant to celebrate tonight, together. Never again. To another winter, I whispered, and another summer when the snow melts. To more walks in the moonlight and more wins against the cards we've been dealt. To another year and another Plenus Luna, the last full moon of summer. Ho there! I whirled around, wiping away my tears. There was a boat on shore, a little rowboat. It couldn't be... Pan? Who's there? I asked, rising to my trembling feet. My name is Smee. A short, tubby silhouette rose out of the boat. An adult? I hadn't seen one of them in years. I heard you screaming. I don't scream. Only little girls scream. My mistake. I could hear the smile in his voice. I heard you yelling. Are you all right? I ducked out of the nostril, marching forward to stand face to face with this stranger. I'm fine, I growled through gritted teeth. But your hand is gone. Look, I don't need your help or your pity. I don't need anyone. I can survive by myself. Smee faltered back a bit. He straightened, pushing his half-moon glasses back up his nose. Oh, I don't doubt that. You're a very strong young man, but you don't have the tools to save yourself. I do. Let me check your arm, make sure there's no infection. Then you can go. No favors, no catch. All right? I peered over his shoulder. His boat was empty. Where are your tools? Smee pointed behind him to a ship far off in the ocean, a little speck in the distance. They're over there. We won't harm you, I promise. We? He wasn't working alone. I don't trust you. I crossed my good arm over the makeshift sling. Then take this. Smee loosened the scabbard at his side, handing his sword to me. I couldn't help my gasp. Compared to the crude weapons Pan and I used to build, this was a masterpiece. It's the only one I have. I can't harm you without it. I looked at the sword, then at Smee, then at my stump. I needed the help desperately. It seemed I would have to play along for now. Fine, you have yourself a deal. Smee grinned, bowing toward me. Then welcome aboard the Jolly Roger, my friend.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Plenus Luna by Maseeha Seedat, narrated by Paeter Frandsen of Christian Geek Central. If you want to read more by Maseeha, your best bet is to follow her on Instagram at sincerelymaseeha, but you can also find her website at sincerelymaseeha.weebly.com to find more of her books. This particular story is from the Never Tales Anthology, Volume 1, and yes, there is a Volume 2. So if you want a continuation of Maseeha's version of Peter Pan and Hook, you'll want to check that out. I'll have links for both of her sites and the book in the show notes. If you enjoyed listening to Paeter narrate the story, you might also enjoy listening to his audio dramas at spiritblade.com or his podcast, Christian Geek Central, where he discusses movies, video games, and all things enjoyed by self-proclaimed geeks from a Christian worldview. This month, we are featuring fairy tale retellings because I thought it would be fun to have them alongside our fantasy retelling giveaway. You have until the end of this month to enter to win a 3-month Audible subscription plus 4 fantasy retelling audiobooks. So head on over to findingfantasyreads.com/giveaway to enter. If you enjoyed this story, please consider sharing it with a friend, preferably a friend who would also enjoy this story. There are links in the show notes to make that as easy as possible for you. Thank you all for listening, and happy reading.